There we are.
Yeah, we are recording. So hi everybody and welcome back to Two Peas in a Peggy podcast. My lovely friend Amoes has joined me once again, and we are going to spill the tea or juice in Amoes' case over the final part of the Summer of Impossible Things. So the book in question is The Summer of Impossible Things. This is our virtual book club discussion that we've got. It's an amazing book. We've already covered half of the book in page length, but Amoes and I are just going to discuss the final part, so the final act of this book, which is building up to this big incident. And thank you for joining me again, Amoes.
Yes, lovely to be back. Thank you for having me.
So I've taken some notes because we like to delve deep into what's going on with the story, because there's loads of kind of deeper meanings and discussion topics that we've already kind of, managed to glean from the other two parts and the other two podcasts. But I will say this just as a disclaimer to everybody. There are spoilers because we are talking about what happens in the book. So if you've not read the book and you want to, but you don't know what's going to happen, then my advice would be to return to this podcast if you're interested at a later date. Or if you are interested and you want to know and you don't mind what happens and knowing what happens, then by all means, feel free to watch and comment below. Or it might just be something that you think, yeah, I read that book and I really like it. I want to join the discussion. I want to put my thoughts and comments down. Any feedback is welcome. We like the positive feedback, don't we, Amoes?
We certainly do.
So just to kind of have a book club discussion, and we've just been talking actually before recording that it was 2 months ago that we did the last one, and the concept of time in that sense, because this book focuses on time, it's about time travel. It's quite strange because it didn't feel like it was 2 months ago that we did the last one, did it?
Not at all. No, and a lot's happened in that 2 months.
A lot has happened indeed, and we are now recording this on the 1st of January 2021, so we've got that 2020 year behind us now, and so like to wish everybody a happy new year also, and just a way to round off the discussion in terms of this book. This podcast is all about sort of two peas in a pod in terms of like-minded souls coming together to discuss what they're interested in, creative expression, so books. There's other podcasts on TV programs, etc. And I know that we're hoping to do a podcast at a later date, which we'll come on to later, which is actually a book that was made into a TV series. So that'll be quite interesting to cover that as well.
Yes.
I thought you'll agree, Amoes. So we have our tea or our juice.
Indeed, we do.
Flamingo cup here. So we're going to spill the tea and we'll dive right in. So I don't know if there's anything you wanted to say, first of all, Amoes, before we get into the discussion. I was just going to kind of do a recap and then cover the final act then of the book.
Sounds good. Yeah, looking forward to getting started.
Lovely. So for those of you who've been following the podcast, you'll know that we've been talking about our protagonist, our main character, Luna, and her sister P, who are in Bay Ridge, Brooklyn, New York. They've gone to discover more about their mum because their mum has recently passed. There's been a revelation that's come out that Luna is actually the result of a sexual attack. So big revelations, lots of stuff going on, full of emotion, full of discovery. And Luna actually realizes she has this gift of being able to time travel. And from what started off as something very scary, what's happening to me? Is this a dream? Is this reality? Because she's a scientist, but she's also got a creative spirit as well with her photography. She kind of doesn't really know at the beginning, is this really happening to me? Am I seeing this? And she meets her mum in 1977 and has this kind of connection with her. But ultimately now it's all about saving her life, or trying to save her life from this attack, because we found out in the last part, and again, spoilers, that Aunt Stephanie, so her mum's sister, was actually there the night of the attack, and she helped their mum, Luna and P's mum, Riss, to actually flee the scene, from what happened after, because we found out that Riss actually killed her attacker in defense, in retaliation. We don't quite know. So there's been all these truths that have been coming out, and it's been quite hard hitting, hasn't it, Amoes? Because
very much, yeah.
It's kind of like, what you'd be driven to in that moment, and really sort of resonating with the characters. And we're sort of following Luna because she is the protagonist, and we're kind of seeing things through her eyes. And she's just found like truth after truth bomb. It's kind of, this is what's happened to me in my life. Oh my gosh, I've always realized I'm an outsider. This is why. But now I can actually do something about it and I can change it. However, the caveat to that is it's bittersweet, because if she's able to go back and change the past, which she's already proved that she can do by carving initials in the tree, hiding things, and then she knows she's changed the past. If she can do that and actually change what happened that night, she may cease to exist. There's a very good chance she will cease to exist. So that is very much a sacrificial act that she's willing to do to save her mum. Almost like her purpose. And we discussed before, didn't we? What if that was your purpose in life?
Yeah.
You know, if that was what it was all about. She's always been trying to find meaning in her life. And now she recognizes, right, I have to do this. So there's a bravery to her as well. And we've seen that. But also a love story has kind of started, hasn't it? Because there's a guy called Michael who she's met in 77. She's very smitten with him and he is of her. And it's just that, you know, how that's starting to unfold for us as well. So we know that she's connected to the past, deeply connected to the past in her present.
Yeah.
Which a bit of a kind of a weird one, but I think the book is just, it's so well written that it just doesn't it really nicely. So so we'll get into it, and we're now at the 11th of July. So it's a couple of days before this attack is due to take place. So we can already feel there's a bit of tension building up. And the sisters are called to Mr. Gillespie's office, who is the lawyer that's there, and Aunt Stephanie is there. And there's this kind of sense of urgency from Stephanie. She wants them to get rid of the building, their family's building, quite quickly, to put the past behind them. But obviously Luna doesn't want to do it immediately because she's still discovering things, and she has this kind of mission of hers. Now, what I found interesting from this chapter, I've written it down, not only does Luna reveal her father's alleged identity, and I say alleged identity, at this point we still don't know, and her aunt confirms that it is the priest. So there's that further revelation, and P is exposed to that because she didn't know before. So that's Luna's sister. But there was a sense of abandonment and codependency in this chapter, because Stephanie kind of reveals that night that Riss left, her sister left, she felt abandoned. So it's almost like her sister has gone through this horrific crime. Okay, they've done something terrible by killing a man, but then Stephanie's the one that feels abandoned.
Yeah.
So I got that kind of, that weird sort of sense, which mirrored in some ways that codependency between P and Luna, because we know earlier on in the book there was a lot of reference to P kind of needing Luna to be around. And she does even say, and I've put this down as a quote, so I'll just read this. Bear with me. Yeah, P says, I know that I can face the world 1,000 times over with my sister at my side. So it's almost like, that's lovely, but it did kind of ring that sense of codependency that P has. Yeah, and that recognition now, I think that if Luna goes through with this, which P is aware this is what she's wanting to do, she doesn't want her to leave because she doesn't want her to die. Again, there's that sense of abandonment. Yeah. That mirrors Aunt Stephanie. We also find out that Stephanie married Curtis, and Curtis was one of the guys who I was going to say Riss, who Luna met when she went back to the 70s, and they were in friendship groups. So that was interesting as well. But that was a toxic relationship. So that adds another layer to what happened that night as well. So again, it's keeping the reader sort of intrigued, isn't it? Yeah. Now they go to the church, I found this very interesting, Amoes, because the church is called the Church of the Transfiguration.
Yeah.
So obviously a lot of kind of transformation, metamorphosis almost. And it's like, well, everything did kind of change that night, and it could be changing again.
Yes.
Soon. So I thought that was interesting. But P makes reference to it looking like a church from the Omen film, which is a horror film. So already as a reader, you're thinking it's dark, it's a bit scary. It kind of puts that in our mind as the reader, doesn't it? And there is this kind of description, which, you know, I've put down the quote, but it's all about the lightness within the church. There's lots of references to it being light, but then the darkness of knowing what happened in the church. It's supposed to be a safe place. So they meet Michelle, and this is another person from 77, and she does recognize Luna on some level. But what then follows is Luna is trying to kind of quiz Michelle about this priest to try and find out more. And not long after that, she time travels. And it was described very interestingly, because it was as her feet pushed through the final floor, slipping into space. And she almost doesn't realize it's happening because it's happening quicker now.
Yeah.
She's back in 77. She sees the priest, and that pain kind of comes to the forefront. This is him, you know, this is at that time it's going to happen. And the priest, Father Delaney, describes Luna as being lost in life, which I found very interesting, because again, she'd always felt like an outsider. And this is somebody who is allegedly her biological father, who is saying that to her. So it's almost reflecting back what she feels about herself.
Yeah.
And as we know, don't we, like, what's reflected back to us is ultimately what we're feeling. I don't know if you've got any other views on that as a general concept about reflections and projections almost.
Yeah, I mean, I suppose it is interesting, because we do that in life, don't we? And we don't even realise sometimes that we are doing it when something's been sort of triggered within us almost. We can sort of convey it out without even realising that we've done that. So
yeah, for sure. And not long after they have this this kind of meeting, she sees Michael. So Michael's back. So it's like, okay, this is something good. And there's a quote, so I'm just trying to find it here in the book, which I wanted to discuss with you, because it's about perceptions of fate. And he kind of smiles at her. So I'll read out the quote and then we'll discuss it. So they see each other. So his smile of recognition makes my heart leap, and it's hard not to think that fate or some grand plan has us turning endless corners, always into one another. And he describes later on, maybe I'm your fate, because this is when they're talking a bit later on and she's actually revealing the truth. But he believes her because he actually sees her vanish before his very eyes. So it's almost like that concept is totally believable to him, because he's in there. So fate is mentioned on those two occasions at least. So I just wondered, in terms of a discussion kind of topic, we know that things are fated in life, and there is ultimately a divine plan. And it almost feels like these two, Luna and Michael, as weird as it sounds, the concept of her being present day meeting him in the past is almost a fated moment.
Yeah.
Because the bond they share in that moment, and he fully believes it's fate. So I just wondered what you thought about that in terms of fated moments, and often the fact that they can come up when we're kind of set towards a journey of something, and these fated moments happen, don't they, to either pull us back to reality or to kind of shift us into a different direction. So yeah, just wondered your thoughts on that, Amoes.
Yeah, fated moments is an interesting one, isn't it? Because what immediately came to mind for me, which is a bit of an out there concept, is about people that are truly meant to be together, which we feel that they are truly meant to be together. And there is no concept of sort of time or space or anything when people are truly meant to be together. In fact, even with some people, they are quite different in age, which if you think about in terms of the time travel, they would be very different in age.
Yeah.
So it's really interesting, but there's a soul level of recognition, isn't there, with the two of them? And obviously he's seen her kind of disappear, as you say. So he knows. It's like, no, something's happened that keeps bringing me back to you. So our souls always know when those fated moments happen, but yeah, they do take us by surprise. It's not something that we're prepared for, is it? It normally knocks us off a little bit.
That's right, yeah. And interestingly, as you were talking there, because I wrote down right at the end of my notes just to kind of pick up on themes and different things for this last section, and I put next to it, love. Does time really exist when it comes to love? So I think, like what you've said, you know, there isn't really a concept of time that can be
No.
easily understandable or explainable where love's concerned, I think.
No.
So interestingly, Luna does ask Michael, you know, if I came to see you in 30 years' time, because that's the difference of the timelines, what would you be doing? Which is a very interesting question to ask somebody, because I don't know if you'd be able to answer it for 30 years. I mean, sometimes it's quite difficult to say, what am I going to be doing in 2 years' time?
Well, even tomorrow sometimes, isn't it? You know, especially at the moment. So yeah,
definitely. So there's definitely a curiosity that she's wanting to kind of know what his future plans are for his life, because she cares for him, but also knowing that she is living in that kind of 30 years time, wanting to almost know, okay, if I cease to exist after this point, I know that he's going to be okay, sort of thing. And there was also an interesting discussion about a bridge. So I'll find that as well. There's full of deep meanings in this kind of final section, but the key points really. But she's talking to Michael, obviously, after that question. Now, he wants to be a writer. That's what he wants to do. But I think there's some kind of feeling that because he's in a family business, his dad's bakery, that might be the future's mapped out for him already. But we know, because we discuss on a personal level in relation to that, it's very hard to try and live your life when you're living it for someone else.
Yes.
So I think she can feel that, because she says to him about this bridge that they can see, that beautiful bridge might not go anywhere you want to go, but there are plenty other bridges and tunnels that do. So I found that interesting, because that's kind of forward movement. That's saying that there's always options.
Yes.
And I think we can both relate to that, can't we? That bridge A, might be having some repair work done to it. We can't quite cross it, but actually there's another bridge over there that I didn't see before.
Yeah.
Gets me to the same place.
Yes.
That kind of thing. And this resonated with me a lot, which is all about magnetism between the two of them. So it says here, we lean into one another and we both feel it. This pull, this magnetism made just for us two a desperate need to be connected.
Yeah.
Thoughts on that, Amoes?
Oh, geez. Yeah.
My heart.
This one. Yeah. I could talk about this one for hours, but I won't.
Exactly. Yeah, a separate podcast all on its own.
Yeah, wouldn't it?
Yeah.
I think, yeah, you're right. When you've kind of got that draw and that pull, there's nothing you can do, because it's like you are being pulled like that, and there's no stopping it. And it's at all levels of being. So as you said, feeling your heart pull, isn't it? It's just, that's what you're being drawn towards. That's the path you're being drawn towards, or the person that you're being drawn towards. And it's just, there's nothing you can do just to stop it.
Yeah. Because they get fated.
Yeah.
As we know. So it was very kind of heart-wrenching almost, that love that they have for one another. And most of us can relate to that on a personal level, because, you know, we felt love at some point in our lives for someone, many people, because obviously we can love on many levels, but the strong love that is this magnetic love is something else. And maybe not everybody has experienced it, but it's kind of, you read it and it touches you, because you think, what would I do in that situation if that was my story?
Yeah.
It's almost that love that they have, that they share, but is it just kind of for that moment, and is it ever going to be anything else? You know, it's that kind of, that pull on the heart when you read it. So very touching. And then we have Riss, who appears and reveals she's engaged. So she's engaged to Henry, which we know was going to happen. But actually, because Luna is now, right, okay, focus, this is, I'm here to kind of save you from this. She's kind of interfering and telling her not to go and see the priest. And Riss is actually quite curt with her, because she's quite a free spirit, as we know in the series, and it's almost like, why are you telling me what to do? I don't even know you, even though it's her daughter. But you know, the concept of that, she wouldn't believe, probably. So there does feel like there's a bit of tension that's built up between them now.
Yes.
And has Luna kind of ruined that opportunity to save the day, because Riss is obviously quite headstrong and, no, I'm going to meet the priest because that's what I need to do.
Yeah.
So when Luna goes back to Mrs. Finkel's house, and this is back in the present day for them, 2007, P is actually quite terrified, because she thinks that, was that it? You know, am I going to see her again? And she actually had a close call with a drink. So she got to that point where her addiction was coming up again. Now, there is an interesting quote, again, I will find it in the book, because it's about, I suppose, living in the present moment. And again, knowing what we know about Luna and what she's been through in her life, and how she has kind of lived for other people, because she's been there for other people. She says here, it's about really living much more in a few minutes there, so back in 77, than I could ever do in one whole lifetime here. And that is kind of wow, isn't it? Because she actually, this time traveling not only makes her brave, she's found this love, she's connecting with her mother, so it's in a reality where her mum is still alive. There's a different kind of feel to her, and she knows that that's where she's truly living her life. So I found that interesting also. And I don't know if you've got any other thoughts on that.
It's almost like she feels she was born in the wrong time. Like she feels that she should have been living a life in that time. Which is interesting, because I think sometimes I know I felt that in my life. I should have been living in this era or whatever, that would have suited me better.
Yes. And what they decide to do is they're going to watch another film, because these films have been giving them answers, and they're sort of drawn to watching another film from Riss's collection. But because she's back in 2007 now, and she's not long had that kind of, what's the word, interaction with Michael, she runs to where the bakery was, because 30 years on, isn't it? So it's almost like, well, I wonder if his reality of what he wanted for his life is actually the reality of today. And she finds a guitar shop in its place, and it's like, oh my god, like the baker's not here. So there is that kind of, where is he, sort of thing. And we find out a bit later on, and it's actually through connection with Mr. Gillespie, this lawyer, in 2007, when she's on the bench and she's actually asking him, again, he recognises her, and she's asking him about Michael and trying to find out, and she actually discovers that he passed away. So hence why the bakery is not there, and there's kind of no trace of him almost in Bay Ridge. So it's that's quite emotional as well. But I'll come on to that because that kind of gives her more focus for other things that happen. But yeah, the guitar shop's there. She's back with P. They're watching this film. They're in France, and their mum is about 30, I think she said. So Luna's 9 years old, and we find out that she had slit her wrists. So she had this accident where she tried to take her own life before. And there is that sense of abandonment again, because Luna is kind of, you know, when her mum asks her, what do you want to be when you're older? And she wants to be happy, but she says, I'll never leave my children. It's almost like a bit of a knowing there that she knows her mum because she had to go into hospital, etc. But she says, my mind has simply locked it away. So I wanted to just discuss that briefly with you, that I think we can resonate with this in terms of deep wounds, that sometimes it's easier, or we think it's easier, to lock it away. But actually, it's not always the best, because they become deep rooted, don't they?
Yes. Can we pause a moment, honey? Is that all right? Because I just need to top up my glass.
Oh, yes, of course. Yes.
Is that okay?
Yeah, I'll carry on talking. Yeah. So we find there's obviously deep wounds from this accident that Rhys had previously, and Luna has tried to block it out. She's then sort of unwrapping this dress that Rhys had made for her and had given it to her that day when they had that kind of tense discussion. And you know, she knows she's going to be time traveling back in order to do what she needs to do, but she's got this dress that you know, she's wanting to actually put on to make herself feel good, to be in the moment, to allow, you know, the night to flow as it needs to flow. And P is teasing her about Michael. So because she knows that there is that connection between them, and she's almost teasing her as if to say, oh, you know, you like him, he likes you, etc. But it's almost building up more of that emotion that Luna is having to kind of keep at bay, pretty much, because she's, you know, she's trying to focus on the task at hand, but she does have feelings for Michael, and everything is building up. So so you know, that's not so helpful of P, but it's kind of what you could maybe expect for that banter between sisters that's going on. And oh, Amos is back. Welcome back. I was just talking about how Luna is unwrapping the dress before she time travels back. You know, she's got this dress Rhys had made, and P is also teasing her a bit about Michael. But there's a quote that comes up where she says, everything will be how it's meant to be.
Yes.
And she also feels that her current reality is not how it should be. So it's almost like she feels like she's got nothing to lose. Wondered if you had any thoughts on that.
I think, that's the thing, isn't it? I think if you're not kind of 100% happy in your current life, and you've discovered this amazing gift, haven't you, that you can travel back, you can time travel, and you're living a great life in that alternate reality, it's almost, well, I need to kind of take this chance. I just need to do it because, you know, my current life's not quite making the grade. So if there's a chance that I can be happy and I can change things and I can change the course of history, I'm going to give that a try. Yeah, for sure. And it's, she goes into it with kind of like all guns blazing almost, doesn't it? Like, this is my mission. This is what I need to do. I'm going to do it. Very brave. And, you know, she time travels. She's back in 77 again. She's at this location, which is the Saturday Night Fever location of this nightclub, discotheque, as they call them. And, you know, she's got Rhys there, Aunt Stephanie,
Curtis, and then Michael joins as well. Luna and Riss share a moment outside where she kind of talks to her on a different level, and she understands that she was just trying to help. And she actually convinces Riss to see the priest at a social event, so not a one-on-one, but where there's other people.
Yes.
And feels that by doing that, that's sufficient, because Riss kind of agrees to do it. So it's almost like, well, if it's as simple as that, my work here is done.
Yeah.
Then that will be it. But she's still there. So she's like, okay, what's going on? And there was a really interesting description in chapter 37 where she's dancing and she's giving it her all. And this again goes back to that whole feeling of living in that time, because she's really existing there.
Yeah.
Weird way, isn't she? She's being present, but she's enjoying her life. And
yes,
that shows. Now, the romantic moment under the moonlight with Michael outside is short-lived, because she time travels back, and that's the moment where she vanishes. So that was the moment that he was witness to. And she's back in 2007 at Mrs. Finkel's house. Mrs. Finkel is kind of quizzing her, because she knows, okay, you've come here to look for answers about your mum. I get that. And she says something very interesting, because moments before, in a bit of frustration, Luna kind of breaks this statue of Mary, splits it into two.
Yes.
Which I think is interesting how it was in two. But there's a quote, which I will just find here, which is about when you think you're going to break from everything you go through, but you don't. So it's sometimes in this life, you think you're going to break, you're certain of it, you think there is no other possible outcome, and yet somehow you don't. And she's just trying to tell her to remember that, to keep that in mind. And I think that's very interesting, because both of us, we know we've been through certain things in our life that could have, at the time, for want of a better term, broken us, like as they're saying here. And it may have been extremely painful, challenging, emotionally, physically, spiritually, mentally, all sorts. But actually, we're here.
We made it.
So it is, I found that very interesting. And it's what a lot of people should hold on to, because whatever's going on, it's only temporary.
Yes.
And it might feel like the worst thing ever, but actually it's making us stronger, isn't it?
Absolutely.
So very, very important. Now, Mrs. Finkel actually, sorry, before that, I jumped ahead a bit. Aunt Stephanie appears and then kind of blurts out this other revelation that Luna's biological father is still alive. So it's like...
massive.
Yeah. And I was thinking, the first time I read it, what the actual is going on here? Because this just changes things, doesn't it? Because it's almost like, well, was that a lie then that you told us? So Luna gets really angry with her aunt, because it's almost like, my mum, your sister, had to carry round that guilt, thinking that she'd killed somebody.
Yeah. And she hadn't.
Couldn't live with herself, and ended her own life because of it. So Luna is outraged with Stephanie, understandably. The sisters tell Mrs. Finkel, because Mrs. Finkel's like, what is going on here? Like, you know, fill me in, please. So she then finds out the truth, and she gives Luna a card for a psychic in the area. So she goes and sees this psychic, and this psychic knows that Luna has been kind of reaching into other universes, and she actually says something, which is another discussion point here. Time has you in its grip. So she was saying, you know, that fate will actually demand that Luna finishes what she set out to do. And I found that interesting. I put notes by the side: committing to the course, intentions, universe shifts accordingly.
Yes.
Which I'm sure you'd agree with. And that relates to that time has you in its grip, doesn't it? Because I think once you do set your intentions, the universe hears that and is like, okay, we're going to create this reality for you now. And that's it, then shifts. So
Things shifts. Yeah.
Yeah, I totally agree with that. Yeah.
Me too.
And there is more to any one of us than just blood and bones, which again we agree with. So that was a very good kind of interlude almost within the story, but I think definitely just that confirmation that Luna has to see it through now, which she is aware of, but the next time she goes back to time travel, she almost goes back with a deeper understanding of what she's doing and why she's doing it. There is another powerful quote, Amoes. I will just read that out to you as well. This book is packed full of deeper.
When you delve back in, there's loads, isn't it? Yeah.
There's. Okay, so this is when they are at the psychics, and P is kind of concerned because she's saying, is there not any other way that this can be done? You know, Lydia's not sure, that's a psychic. And she says, I don't know what it is you are doing, but I do know this: have faith. Faith in God, perhaps. Faith in the people that matter, definitely. More than that, though, have faith in love. Love outlasts even death. It's present in every moment, even those filled with darkness. It's never exhausted. It never gives up or wavers. It's the one force of the universe that will never be captured by an equation or your science. Have faith in love and let it guide you, and you never know. Impossible things happen all the time.
Yeah.
Thoughts on that?
It's true, isn't it? Because love, I think love and actually peace are the great presiding forces, aren't they? Finding peace, I think, is the kind of the highest level, but love just presides over everything. And I really think, and faith is a big thing as well, isn't it? Because I think sometimes it's almost, there's a saying about having, faith moves mountains, isn't it? And it's so true, because it's like the universe does have your back, and you've just got to believe, and you've got to be positive, set your course, decide where you're going, put your intentions out there, and believe. But I think sometimes for somebody who's had so much in a short space of time, with all of this time travel and all this stuff that's happened, it's almost, my gosh, could this really be the case? Could this actually happen? And then the doubt kind of creeps in, doesn't it? But having faith and love being at the center of everything, absolutely. Yeah.
Definitely. And that goes back to what we were talking about, doesn't it, with connections as well, and how
Yes.
that time concept doesn't exist when it comes to love in some ways.
Yeah.
So she's back at the church, and she sees the priest again, and she sees herself reflected in his eyes. But again, is it because she's looking for that? Because we know what happens sort of later on. Now, this is where she fully comes into her warrior mode, because she tells him straight in the face, I'm your daughter, you raped my mum. It's almost like, oh, where did that come from?
Outbursts come from.
Yeah. Which I think stunned him. But he gets quite angry and pushes her at one point, and then you're thinking, oh my God, perhaps he is evil, as a priest, but actually this is a bit of a nasty side to him coming out. And there was a very interesting correlation. It's got a reference to shadow, like she's in the shadow of the cloisters or something, and then the sun. So it's almost like she's had to go through that to become that kind of,
yes,
brightness that she needed, that strength at that time. She sees Michael again, so it's like, oh, so that's carrying on. And this is where he believes her, because he'd seen her vanish. And it's very heart-wrenching, because again, I alluded to it earlier, he says, maybe I am your fate. He doesn't want to believe that she's there for any other reason but to meet him, because it was meant to happen, which is part of it, I think. But and there is an interesting thing that she's feeling about that kind of, I want to surrender to this rescue from this man who loves me and I love him. But in this reality right now, I have to rescue my mum.
Yes.
So kind of, she wants to be rescued for her own life, but she knows she has this bigger thing that she needs to do. Now she goes to Mr. Gillespie's office and asks for his help, because she's like, this priest is not good. This is what I know he's
doing.
And Mr. Gillespie, I found this very interesting. again, because of what we find out, but he makes a church of his fingers.
Yeah.
So you know when you do that whole thing?
Yeah, I remember that from as a kid.
And I found that interesting because we know the revelation that's going to come, and he's listening to Luna talking about this priest, and it's just like, okay, so he actually says, right, I'll keep an eye on him, and I'll keep an eye on your mum as well, but he doesn't say your mum, obviously he says Riss. So then we go back to the present day, and she's back at Mrs. Finkel's, and wow, different reality.
Yeah.
Her mum is there. I mean, I don't know what you thought at this point, but I was like, oh my God, she actually did it by convincing her that night.
Yeah.
And maybe by asking Mr. Gillespie for help, and maybe facing off to the priest about, you know, you're bad, you're going to do this, don't do it, kind of thing, that she has now changed her reality.
Yes.
So she's feeling this elation, and it says, I feel like I have won some great cosmic gamble. So it was a gamble to do that. And very brave to do it as well. But this elation doesn't last for very long, does it, Amoes?
It doesn't.
Because she then finds out that there were other victims. The rape still happened, but obviously the act of killing didn't happen. So it changed reality from that point of view. But it also changed reality in terms of other victims. And they actually go, the sisters go with their mum to meet Patricia, who's only about 18, who reveals it happened when she was 11 years of age. So, and this was the imagery of this, where they go to her house and it says a basket of dead flowers hangs outside the front door. And I was just like, wow, because there is that darkness still there. Yeah. But Luna wants to feel happy because her mum is there. P doesn't know any different because the reality's changed. He doesn't know. But this girl, this Patricia, had dreams and aspirations. So Luna is feeling guilt now because she's changed the reality.
Yes.
And has hurt more people by doing it, but not intentionally, you know. So she then realizes, I've got to go back to 1977 and kill this guy myself. So I'm like, oh my God. So this bravery comes through again, because it's like, it's almost like she's not going to stop until she sees the reality that she wants. Yeah. But so I found it interesting, Amos. It'll be interesting to get your thoughts on it, because it's almost like, okay, we know that by making decisions, whatever decisions we make in our life sets us on a course.
Yes.
And there's course corrections. There's obviously detours that we go on, and ultimately what's meant to be will always be. So we know that our reality can change based on decisions we make at a certain time or certain events that happen, etc. But this is actually bigger because it's almost time traveling and changing the reality.
Yes.
It's not just from a decision, it's almost physically changing it. But the quantum multiverse concept of timelines existing in parallel along with each other, it's almost like, okay, so maybe the one reality is actually everybody survives. She meets up with Michael again. They all live happily ever after. And that's running parallel against death timeline. It's running parallel against all those. And maybe she's just hopping in between all of them. So it's just wanted to get your feels on that, really.
Yeah, I do believe in, you know, alternate timelines. And I know we've talked about this a lot in terms of even dreams, because it's, to me, they feel like they could be another timeline, you know, and then something happens in a dream. It's so vivid, and you wake up and you think, I actually traveled there. That wasn't a dream. That was another timeline that I was walking along. And I think you can kind of be, it's a bit out there, but I know we support the concept of it. You can be on your 3D timeline as you're on it now, your physical reality, but alongside that, your soul is kind of feeling something else happening. It's feeling a pull if you're perhaps maybe not quite aligned with your physical reality.
100%. 100%.
So I think that's kind of what's going on a bit in the story, isn't it? Is that, you know, Luna doesn't feel that alignment with her reality, and she's found somewhere that she feels really, wow, this is my place to be. And she's almost drawing her strength from it and her empowerment. The more the stuff happens, she's kind of, I've got to get this right, because this is where I want to be.
Yeah, she is, for sure. And she's also remembering as well as knowing that there were other victims and having that guilt. She's also remembering memories now of this new timeline she's on. And she's still with Brian. So she's still in a toxic relationship where she's getting treated like dirt. Not a scientist. So she didn't follow her dreams. She's not doing what she loves. So you balance that out. It's almost like, well, my mum's back. I've got my mum back. She's still alive. And that's what I wanted. But all the other that made me who I was gone. So yeah, it's very tough. So, and her mum even reveals to Luna that she wishes she'd killed him. She still doesn't say his name, so we're still thinking it's the priest, you know. But she won't say his name, and she even says, "I don't say his name,"
which is a trauma thing as well, isn't it? Sometimes to kind of say the name of somebody that's attacked. Yeah.
Definitely. So she's got regret. Luna's feeling guilt. And it's almost like, right, she knows she needs to do this. There's a goodbye with no goodbyes, you know. And also then she has that interaction with Mr. Gillespie in 2007 on the bench, the same bench. And that's when she finds out that Michael passed away. So it's like, oh my God, this reality, can it get any worse? You know?
Yeah.
Almost. Notwithstanding her mum's there, but you know, it's almost the other thing, kind of like, oh, I need to go back and change this. So she wants to go back, and I will read you this and get your thoughts on this, Amoes, because we're now at the 13th of July. This is the day of the alleged incident. So at the beginning of each of these, with the dates, there's always like a little quote that the author has put, and this is a quote from John Keats. 3 days with you I could fill with more delight than 50 common years could ever contain.
Wow, that's powerful, isn't it?
I mean, that hit me in the feels, like straight away. And it's certainly what she's been experiencing. When you think of the connection with Michael, you know, that limited time when she's been in 77, he's always kind of been there. He's always shown up when she's there. So that timeline is kind of, you know, she's with him almost.
Yes.
And that time's so limited, yet it means so much more to her than the other 30 years of her life. Yeah. Which very, very powerful. She recognizes it's her last day on Earth. Her last day as Luna Sinclair. And this was quite powerful as well. And I think this has deeper meaning for everybody, because she's cherishing every moment from when she kind of wakes, she's getting ready. It's almost like she's preparing for the end in a way. Because she knows this is it now. I've got to make this right. But she's cherishing every single moment that she feels and experiences, even the exhaustion, her feet on the cold floor that she can feel, drinking water, everything that makes her a human, as it says in there, actually makes her cherish living the life that she wants to live.
Yes.
She takes a photo of herself because she thinks, well, if I cease to exist, maybe, you know, my sister P will have some memory of me or something, you know, but she takes this picture. She leaves the camera with her sister and she leaves, doesn't want to wake them. And she sees the bridge again, and this bridge is known as her companion. And I think that relates back to this whole traveling concept, doesn't it?
Yes.
Different routes in and out of places. So she's back in 77. She time travels back to 77, and she's doing it super quick now. She can get in the zone and she just does it. And she actually goes to the Taylor Company, which is owned by her grandfather, Leo Lupo. So
made for that, isn't it?
And she then joins Rhys, and Rhys wants to go out and about and take photos and just basically, again, that free spirit, living life. And Luna is with her, enjoying the time that they're together. But she can see, and again, this goes back to reflections, because Rhys is truly loving her life, living every moment, and that's being reflected back to her because people are smiling at her in the street, everybody's having fun, it's just great time. So that's really good. But powerful quote, Luna feels, you know, her beauty is the perfectly still surface of a lake just before a rock is tossed into its midst. So that imagery was quite powerful. But also, I thought, and I wanted to get your view on it, there's still beauty from destruction.
Yes.
Isn't there?
Yeah, there is. It's like your tower moment, isn't it? Kind of, yeah.
Yeah.
Down it comes, but it's like, wow, well, there was a real gift in that. That had to happen for me to be able to rise again from the ashes and to start something new, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. She does say something quite powerful. Again, we can relate to this, to Rhys. And this is this whole decision about, you know, do I go with Henry now? Do I still go and see the priest and all of this? She says to her mum, then, if you like, shouldn't you be listening to your heart? Now, do you think we listen to our heart, or do you think we listen more to our heads in today's society?
Most people listen more to their heads, don't they? I'd like to think that I'm more aligned with my heart, but there's obviously an element of my head in there.
Yeah, and I personally, for me, and you know, because we're friends, but to give some insight, you know, I feel that I'm following my heart to a certain extent, but I've listened to opinions of other people too much in my life, that's kind of overshadowed things. But also in a situation where I'm not particularly comfortable in at the moment, which you know about, has kind of led me to lose myself in terms of my core. And I actually thought to myself the other morning, and I know we're having a bit of a kind of like personal conversation on this podcast, but other people might be able to relate to it. I'd got out the shower and I was like thinking about things, and I thought, I love creative expression. That's what I'm all about. Okay. Passion for writing, passion for dancing, all of that. Creative expression is it. I can watch a movie and I can be in tears because I'm connected to the emotion of it, and a song, etc. But I felt at that moment I was living as an actor in my own life.
Right.
Which is not
the Truman Show.
Totally the Truman Show. And I've even had moments where I walk up and down the street and people almost wait for you to walk past or approach them, step out in front of you. And I'm like,
yeah,
this is interesting. So yeah, the Truman Show, definitely. But I felt like I'm an actor in my own life, certainly for the last couple of months. And it's like, no, that's not who I am.
No.
In my soul, at my core and everything.
No.
I'm doing it to kind of please other people.
But not pleasing myself.
Yeah. So that was so that I digressed a bit there, but it's almost like, shouldn't you be listening to your heart? 100%.
Yes.
The reality is is being able to do that with a clear mind, I suppose, and not an ego mind that's brainwashed from other things.
Other people, outside influences.
Influences for sure. Really taking it inside. Now you're going to love this next bit, because I loved it when I read it. Now, bearing in mind, this podcast is called Two Peas in a Peggy podcast. Peggy for obvious reasons, because that's my sort of alter ego, if you like. But Two Peas in a Pod, that concept is what I was thinking of for the podcast. Now, Luna bumps into Michael's dad in the bakery, so they have an interaction, and Rhys is there, and obviously Michael's dad can see there's a sort of similarity between them, but can't quite put it on it. And he's asking if they're related, and he's like, oh, you know, it's strange no one has ever told you that you're the spit of her. And he laughs and he says, like 2 peas in a pod.
Yeah.
And I was just like,
that's amazing.
Especially for this podcast. So I just wanted to mention that because it just totally, yeah.
Yeah, alignment. Yeah, love it.
Definitely. Now Michael takes Luna back to his house. Not for any funny business, because they're much more, you know, deeper connected than just face value. But it's still very emotional. Everything that's building up with these two is very emotional because, you know, he even says, and this just pulled at me as well, because it's like, I'll miss you every day for the rest of my life. And he wants to wait for her. You know, he understands she's from a different time. And it's just so touching that he would do because of how he feels for her. So, you know, they're kind of like almost saying their goodbyes without saying goodbye, really. And Luna is then later at Riss's building because she's arranged to go there. She knows she hasn't got time to fail in this. And it says in the book, 9:34 p.m., 13th of July, and the great blackout of 1977 begins. So it's like we know now. And as we're getting further into the book, we know there's not many pages left. Something's gonna happen. There is such darkness to the description and the imagery of the church because she ends up going to the church. She can't find Riss in this building, even though the light is on, but there's nobody there. The lights are on, but no one's home. But she goes to the church, and there were so many things that I was just penciling under. There's nothing but darkness above and below, hidden in the darkness, shadowy groups, dense dark. The sky rumbles and groans, black metal, sharp edge, sharp rip of pain, a trickle of blood as I slam onto the ground.
Yeah.
That, for me, the imagery is just building up this kind of tense, you know, the
Very
storm.
dark.
We know we've got storm. It's building up to this incident. And she still can't find them in the church. And she's like, where are they? She goes into the hall where all these people are. And she sees, what's her name? I've forgotten her name. Not Melissa, the other friend. But Stephanie, the girl that she saw earlier on in the church. And she's looking for them. She's looking for the priest. She's looking for Riss, but don't know where they are. But then the sudden realization at this point, Amoes, is that she's with Mr. Gillespie. She's with the guy, and that's kind of like the moment where she thinks, oh my gosh, he's the trusted man, he's the pillar of society.
I've gone cold as you've said it again, even though I know because I've read the book, but it's that shiver of, oh crikey, she got it wrong.
And also, my battery, sorry.
Oh yeah, no, that's okay. Mine will probably do the same in a bit. But we are drawing to the end, aren't we? So we're okay.
We are. I'll just plug that in. Oh, if I can move that a bit closer, sorry. Yes, it was full, the battery.
Yeah, surprising, isn't it? How much it drains.
Yes. There we go. Right. We should be all right now. So that was weird how that happened at that moment of the revelation. But she realizes, oh my God, it's him. And the fact that she went to see him and he offered that kindness of, oh, I'll look after Marissa. And also she was on the bench with him and she was crying on his shoulder because of finding out about Michael. So it's like, wow, it was him all along. But then you think back and you think, well, Stephanie was in his office and Stephanie confirmed that it was the priest. So Stephanie must have known all along that it wasn't the priest. And then you think back to that time when she went to the office and Curtis, Stephanie's new husband at that time, walked out as well, and they were having a bit of a joke, and he was saying something like, I've kept him out of trouble. And it's almost like, why did he keep him out of trouble? Because Curtis was probably hiding the same secret that was along. So everything then begins to make sense. And she's discovering all of that. So they have this kind of like this fight scene almost. She really goes for it, and she's like, "You're out of here, mate." He goes over the balcony, dies. But there's a touching moment between Rhys and Luna, because Rhys actually says, "Will you be there with me?" And it's almost like, this is going to change things. Potentially she isn't going to be. And you don't actually realise that's your daughter that sat there with you, and she's come back to save you. So that was really powerful as well. She wakes up, and I don't know what you thought when you first read this, but at this point I was thinking, is she alive? Is she in heaven?
Yeah.
What's happening now? She's woken. But all the family are there, and there's that fantastic imagery again in the writing where she's saying about memories are kind of slotting into her like coins, and it's almost like you get that. They're all kind of filling up. She feels that the universe returned her, but she now has brown eyes, so it did change the reality. But she still exists. And there's a deeper thing I want to discuss with you on this, because I felt she exists as a soul, doesn't she?
Yes.
Because we all exist as a soul. It's just in a different vessel.
Yeah.
If you like. But she's still part of the family. She's still Luna, but Henry is actually her biological father. So it did change history. And she'd even said to her mum in the 70s, if you have a daughter, name her Luna.
Yeah.
She clearly did. So, she goes, the guitar, she wants to go and find out again. Oh, Michael, because Michael's on her mind.
Yeah.
The guitar shop is still there. And it's like, well, maybe I couldn't win it all. So you're still feeling for her at this point.
Yeah.
But she notices, and we know how things were signposted to things.
Yes.
She notices that there is a bakery and a bookstore under his family name. And through the window, she can see a book that has been written by him. So he did make it as a writer, which is what she wanted for him. And it's called The Girl Who Came Back from the Moon. And interesting number of levels, because earlier on, when they were talking at his house, he was comparing her to the film The Man Who Fell to Earth, because he saw it that she dropped out of the sky to him, which is lovely when you think of it like that. But also the moon, because her name's Luna.
Yes.
And it just made me think of Luna.
Yes.
And she was living her own lunar cycle throughout this story. So just amazing.
There's my note.
I think we're almost done. We're almost done. But that is basically, they see each other.
Yeah, I won't plug it in because it will probably mean having to move the phone. But we'll see how we go.
So he's like, you came, and that revelation that he did actually wait for her.
Yeah,
was just so powerful. And it ends with the future has finally arrived. It's like that new idea of the future for them. The epilogue in this book as well was also very moving, because she's saying it feels exactly right, just as it should be. And she wants to watch, they've still got those films. Obviously her mum is alive in this reality and everything, but they're still going through the films, and she wants to see this film. She knows the one she wants to go for, and it's the one from 1977.
Yeah.
And she finds there is that picture of her and her mum in 1977 on this piece of film.
Yeah.
Which I just found such a weird concept, but lovely all the same.
Yeah, wonderful, isn't it? Yeah.
Which just kind of tied everything up, because it was almost like she did exist.
Yeah.
There, because she changed things, and her soul still exists now.
Yes.
But with no connection to that guy, and that attack didn't happen. So everything's course corrected as it needed to.
Yeah.
Her mum does say, thank you for being brave. So it's almost like on some level she knew what she was doing. And I just found that really powerful.
Yeah.
I thoroughly enjoyed reading the book.
Me too.
And certainly for a third time delving deeper into it, because so many hidden things in there that on first reading, you
don't
just
see it. No. But it's like that with many books, isn't it? You go back in, it's like, I missed that the first time around.
Definitely. And I think there is a film, I'm sure they commissioned a film to be made of it, which
that'd be good.
Should be good. So that would be amazing. My throat.
Oh.
Interesting. Interesting. But yeah, I kind of written down like the themes that I picked out was bravery.
Yeah.
Selflessness of her, sacrificial, and actually finding her inner strength from living in a different time.
Yes.
Was very powerful, because it's almost like, I think if we were living for our kind of bless you for our soul,
yeah,
then maybe we would have a different reality in the 3D, because we make it what we want it to be.
Yes.
Love again, does time really exist when it comes to love? Believing she could do it, and the universe responding, and also that connection with the moon, as I mentioned, because it went from the beginning with her being kind of called Looney Tunes, and she referred to being lunatic, but actually I thought lunar with the moon, because the moon is meant a lot, especially with her and Michael. But I just wondered if you had any final thoughts on the book, the story, what you got from it, any kind of, final thoughts or music.
Multi-layered and multi-dimensional, I think, really, because there is so much, on the face of it. When you pick up a book, you never know what to expect, really, do you? And obviously you'd bought the book for me as a gift, didn't you, because you'd loved it so much, and I loved it just as much, because on so many levels it touched me, about the time travel, and the fact about the parallel universes, the different timelines, but ultimately just how powerful we can be, if we really put our minds to it, and if we're really called, and if we've got that calling, and Luna had this calling to course correct and to do something, just how powerful our stories can be if we believe. So I love it. It's a brilliant book.
And throwing something just into the mix finally, I mean, this time travel, could it be as simple as she was actually in some kind of meditative state,
possibly,
because of creating the reality that you want to see? But I think it's deeper in this book, because there are physically changed, but from a wider kind of point of view, I think we can, we find we get insights such a lot from these downloads from being spiritual, the downloads we receive, the dreams, the synchronicities, all of that, and when we can kind of open ourselves up, and we're open and receptive to love, I think more comes into it. So it's very good. But yes, I did indeed get it to you as a gift, because I knew you would like it, because for me, I was drawn by the colours, and drawn by the fact it said summer, and it was a summer read for me, and of impossible things. And it's just kind of, and on the back, if you could change the past, would you? How far would you go to save the person you love? And it's not a lot on the back, but it was enough to draw me in. And I was like, quick purchase, get it. It was on the beach with me and all of that. But it's lovely. So I would recommend this to you all. The Summer of Impossible Things by Rowan Coleman. It's amazing. It really is.
It is.
And look out for a film if it is coming, because I'm sure I heard that it was commissioned. Now, in terms of the next podcast, because Amoes and I were discussing it before recording this one, there's sort of two on our hit list that we'd like to cover, because again, they've got deeper meanings, they resonate with us on many levels. I'm going to hold up the book I've got here, which is actually Amoes' book that she lent me to read, and also Amoes will hold up hers. And what I'm going to do on social media, I'm going to just put like a little poll to see which one we can talk about first. So first of all, we have The Afterlife of Billy Fingers. Okay, and this is by Annie Kagan. How my bad boy brother proved to me there's life after death. Okay, so it's not a very big book compared to the one we've just been covering, but The Afterlife of Billy Fingers. So if you're drawn to that one as the first one for us to cover, obviously let us know, and I'll put all the details in the comments and social media. And then Amoes, if you'd like to hold up yours.
Yes, so I've got Normal People by Sally Rooney. This has been a TV adaptation, and I've watched the TV adaptation and then read the book. Absolutely wonderful book. It's I mean, it's interesting because it's got a tin on the front. So I do think it's kind of appealing layers to me. But I love this book. I love the story. It says there's a Times thing on the front, says the best novel published this year. It's a brilliant book with many layers and very much about connections between people, or specifically between two souls, and how they weave in and out of each other's lives. So yeah, Normal People.
Yeah, and I think, I mean, to be honest, obviously I'm drawn to both for the reasons. I've not read Normal People, but I will be doing shortly. But I am drawn to it because of how you say the connections, the souls, the connection of the souls. I've watched a few episodes of the TV series.
Yeah.
Just watch the rest, but I think that resonates, and it probably will resonate with a lot of people. I mean, we will cover both these books. It's just the one we're going to do next.
You first,
so,
yeah.
We'll put that one up on the poll, and yeah, that just leaves me to say, really, thank you so much, Amoes, for coming back and joining me on this podcast.
Thank you.
Hope you all enjoyed our discussion. We do like to discuss a lot, and we do often take lots of time discussing just our personal life.
We do.
So it's kind of when we delve deeper into things and these things come up, and hopefully any viewers can appreciate the depth that is actually within these stories and messages we can take from them. Because I think it's very powerful, and the fact it's all done through writing and storytelling for me is extremely powerful, and it's why I'm so passionate about it from my own point of view.
Yes.
Because it really does paint a picture, it helps inspire people, and yeah, I just love it. So thank you so much for being part of this podcast. Thank you, Amoes, and we will see you on the next one, and we'll see which book we're going to cover next. But look out for any details on social media, and take care. Happy New Year, everybody.
Happy New Year.
I will just try and stop the recording now, if I remember how to do it.